Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the changes and updates to the Machinist job that were added in Final Fantasy XIV's next expansion, Shadowbringers. This information is coming to you out of the recent North American media tour I attended, which also means that all of these things are still subject to change. You could see a potency or an effect that's not the same by the time we actually see it in the launch. So I'll add a little watermark at the bottom to remind you of this as you watch, and with that, let's get started. I'll just say it as it is, we might as well have gotten 3 new jobs, because Machinist, outside of a few skills that are named the same, is an entirely different job than it was before. So if you were a big fan of the Stormblood one or the Heavensward one, it's nothing like either of those. But I think they nailed it this time, and you know what, I'm just going to say it, they did. They did it. So let's see what's nearly identical on the Machinist. So one skill that's the same is Spread Shot, and that's it. That's the only one. Nothing else is the same. I'm serious. They have a much longer list of removed skills. Their Bishop Auto Turret and its Overdrive are gone. Reload and Quick Reload are gone because the ammo system is gone as an entirety. Heartbreak is gone. Blank, Rapid Fire, Turret Retrieval, Goss Barrel / removing Goss Barrel, Dismantle, Cooldown, and like the enhanced Dexterity traits are all gone. So as you can tell, there's probably a long list of more noticeable adjustments to the way the job works. Split Shot, Slug Shot, and Clean Shot are not only permanently heated at higher levels, meaning it's not dependent on your heat gauge at all, which is still around, but there's no more RNG ammo to combo between the three. You just go Split Shot, Slug Shot, Clean Shot. It's never going to have any RNG to it. Also, these additionally generate Battery, which is another new gauge that Machinist got. Another skill that saw a major rework was Hotshot. Now, while Hotshot is on the global cooldown, it has its own separate recast timer altogether. It no longer increases the damage the Machinist deals, and instead just generates 20 battery gauge with a 40-second recast, which is affected by skill speed since it's a weapon skill. It does become Air Anchor at level 76 with a trait, which just deals more damage. Another more simple adjustment compared to everything else is Reassemble. It is mostly the same, but instead of just forcing a critical hit, it forces a critical direct hit now, for even more damage. Now I'm going to skip ahead a bit because the next 2 changes are fairly significant. Both Goss Round and Ricochet both get up to 3 charges once they have all of their traits. Now these do not share charges, meaning that you can theoretically use Goss Round and Ricochet 3 times back to back to back to back to back to back to back. I think that was 6 backs. So in other words, you have a lot of off global cooldowns if you let these charge all the way in combat. Next up is Hypercharge, which is nothing alike. This is your only means of actually spending your heat now. It forces your weapon into an overheated state for 8 seconds, which is similar to the overheated state that you had in Stormblood. Now, if you use it while you're already overheated, it will actually extend the duration by 8 seconds. So using 2 of these when you're at 100 heat can give you up to 16 seconds of the overheated status. Now, while you're overheated, on top of the effects you would have had prior, you also get access to 2 new skills that the Machinist got, Heat Blast and Auto Crossbow. Now, Heat Blast, only usable while overheated, is a 1.5 second recast ability on the global cooldown. It reduces the recast time of Ricochet and Goss Round, both of which are charged actions now, and this will allow you to charge them a lot more frequently. Auto Crossbow, on the other hand, is only usable while overheated, same 1.5 second recast while being on the global cooldown, but it's pretty much just a Spread Shot style attack to help do a bunch of AoE damage while you're overheated. Now, I know just the skill you'll want to interact with when you're overheated, and of course, it's none other than Wildfire. It still lasts 10 seconds, and it still functions generally the same, but it's been fixed up to make it more usable. For example, you can now manually end Wildfire earlier by pressing Detonator, which Wildfire becomes after you start the Wildfire timer. This makes it so if an enemy is going to jump before the 10 seconds, at least it's not entirely wasted, you know? Also, the way the potency works is different. It's now just 150 potency times the number of weapon skills landed during Wildfire. So if you land 10 weapon skills, then it does 1500 potency. It doesn't get to that potency until you're level 78, but it's much simpler to understand and use now. And since we're talking about heat skills, might as well cover a few other ones. Barrel Stabilizer just increases your heat by 50 now. It's in combat only, but it's no longer regulating it to 50, it just adds 50. And finally, Flamethrower no longer generates heat per tick. It's just conal AoE damage over time while you channel it. Alright, now that should cover the majority of things that are involved with the heated status, so let's get back on track talking about some of the other stuff. Your Rook auto turret is no longer just a little buddy that you keep out on the battlefield at all times. You can summon your Rook auto turret by consuming battery gauge and summoning it for a short time instead of permanently being out. Now when you get to max level, it will turn into the Automaton Queen, and both of these have their maximum duration increased by having more battery gauge when you actually summon them. Now Rook Overdrive is probably another skill I could have thrown in the mostly the same category, except that it's learned at a much earlier level now, and it evolves into Queen Overdrive at max level. Finally, for old skills that have changed, we have Tactician. Now this used to be a ranged physical role action. It is now a Machinist exclusive action. It reduces damage taken by yourself and nearby party members by 10% for 15 seconds. It can't be stacked with Bard's Troubadour or Dancer's Shield Samba, both of which have a similar effect, so keep that in mind if you're doubling up on ranged physical jobs. Alright, now let's go on to new skills. I know I already mentioned a couple with Heat Blast and the Auto Crossbow, so let's just go down the list. The next one is Drill at level 58. Now this one is on the global cooldown, but it only shares a recast time with Bioblaster. It otherwise has a 20-second recast at base. It's just a 400 potency ability that generates 10 battery gauge. So since we already mentioned it, let's talk about Bioblaster. This one you don't learn until level 72. It's on the global cooldown, just like Drill, but it only shares a recast with Drill. It's conal damage plus a dot for a total of about 350 potency. So basically, single target situations, use Drill. AoE situations, use Bioblaster. They both have the same cooldown, they both generate 10 battery gauge, so that's pretty much all the decision making there. Luckily, we already mentioned Air Anchor as well, so I guess the only thing left to talk about is the Queen Automaton. Now, I mentioned earlier that your Rook will turn into this at max level, so this is your new Rook auto turret, and it's much cooler looking. Now, the Queen Automaton has some basic abilities that you don't really have much control over. Arm Punch is just its automatic attack that it will do every 1.5 seconds. Roller Dash causes it to rush to a target for 300 potency, so if your pet is not close to its target, it will do this skill, and I believe it has a 3-second recast time, so it can do this fairly frequently. Now both Arm Punch and Roller Dash count as weapon skills, so if they happen during a Wildfire, for example, they will count towards its potency. The final ability the Automaton has is Pile Bunker. Now this starts at 800 potency, but that potency goes up with remaining battery gauge at the time of using the skill. Now this can be used manually or automatically when the Automaton Queen's battery runs out. Manually using it dismisses the Automaton Queen early, but you get that bonus potency we mentioned earlier. Odds are that bonus potency is mostly the make up for if you need to use it early because a target is jumping, for example. Now, on top of that, Pile Bunker is not a weapon skill, so it does not count for Wildfire. Keep that in mind. And that's it for the Machinist's actual changes and new skills. It did, of course, get some traits. We've already mentioned some of them up to this point. They got increased action damage 1 and 2, which affect both the Master and the Automaton. You've got the Split, Slug, and Clean Shot Masteries, which make them permanently heated, which we mentioned before. You also have the Charged Action Mastery, which gives Goss Round and Ricochet their 3rd charge. They both start with 2. And, of course, you have Hotshot Mastery, which Hotshot becomes Air Anchor. Easy enough to understand the traits. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with what they did with Machinist. They have managed to take a lot of things that are similar to what Machinist had before, kind of push them into this more like Edgar from Final Fantasy VI theme with this awesome automaton pet, and it's very clear how to manage a lot of this stuff, I feel. So I'm really excited to see how the pro machinists really take this new information and run with it, because I think it's going to be really, really cool. It felt so good to play with the lack of RNG and just having all these elements that can turn you into a gunslinging machinist, literally. But either way, let me know what you guys think of the changes in the comment section of the video below. Before I wrap up, I do want to say, and I've been saying this in every video I record after the first 3, that I'd like to throw a shout out to the other Final Fantasy XIV content creators who were in attendance to the North American Media Tour. I did have plenty of stuff already recorded and things that were captured and screenshots, but for any of the things I missed, I was able to turn to some of the other content creators who were there and ask them for assistance. And there are definitely a few jobs. I don't remember which ones at this point because I've just been going. But I just want to give a general shout out to them because it's a community pulling together and I really appreciate them. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for more. Check out the channel because I've got like 20 videos posted at the same time as this one. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one, and until then, take care.